the Copenhagen Spring. Our in-house expert, Mark Linus, has had to go back to the negotiations where he's trying to help get 350 parts per million back into the negotiating text because it's accidentally gone missing. And so instead of having our friend Mark Linus, we're going to have our researcher, Nick, who's a very talented young man. Come on, Nick. Come on, give us the update that Mark was going to do. I'm just going to put these figures back while you do that.
Okay.
Go for it. What happened today?
Well, basically today we got back together in the second week. The ministers have started to arrive and we're really entering the political zone. So the EU met on the weekend and France and the UK tried to propose a closing of loopholes for forestry. And they decided that we should be accounting in a very legitimate way and we should be trying to create numbers for reductions using forests that are honest and effective.
Okay, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. We don't want to cut down the trees because that would increase climate change. UK saying what?
The UK is saying that's a good idea, but some countries in the EU, such as Finland, Sweden and Austria, are saying that we would like to create our own accounts, which might actually bring the EU back and not allow real emission cuts to occur. So we're talking about having countries create their own dodgy accounting, which allows them to not actually cut emissions, but actually get money from those emission cuts that they make up. It's complicated.
You mean they don't cut down their forests, but they do get paid? They do cut down their forests, and they get paid?
Exactly.
Or they pretend they've got more forests than they actually have. They don't cut them down because they never existed, and they do get paid. It's basically dodgy accounting. That's all you need to know. Who's next?
Other than that, we had Japan say last week that they were not interested and they were strongly opposed to a second commitment period in the legal text. So Japan actually is definitely moving back in terms of where we could be going forward. We need a legally binding treaty, and Japan's saying they're not interested in where the law is at. They're very much interested in the more aspirational ideas, whereas Africa was saying we want real legally binding ideas, and they're trying to bring their group forward. But Japan's bringing their group back with allies such as Australia and Sweden, and basically Japan's legal idea is saying that we will only agree to something and negotiate during a process that favours our interests, whereas Africa is saying we'll only support something that supports us. So actually very little happened today at all.
When you say legally binding, what do you actually mean by that in terms of emission cuts and solving climate change?
Legally binding means basically that they don't just make it up and say, I will do this, and they may be able to avoid it, but they actually get to find ways of making sure emissions cuts actually occur. In the Kyoto Protocol, which is the legal text, this is basically using numbers that they have to find, and now if they can't do it inside their own country, they're going to have to pay a lot of money for someone else to help them.
Cool. We're actually going to be talking a lot more about forests, which was all this stuff, tomorrow, because we're having a whole forest day. So let's move on. What else has happened?
Basically, the only other things worth mentioning is just that the US really hasn't given us any love. They're moving back. They haven't created any ambitious targets that we really need. They're holding us all back, and they're definitely the most significant country with the least targets in the developed world. So as a rich country, they're doing very bad. Not as bad as Canada and Saudi Arabia, but those guys are a joke. America, however, is extremely significant because it's one of the largest emitters, along with China. So it's a very important country, and it needs to come up with money because it's also one of the richest countries. It can help with long-term money.
We've actually got a lovely video all about America, where Mark and Lizzie have been chasing around in true Michael Moore style, trying to get hold of or get an interview with Stephen Chu, the Energy Secretary, but we haven't got that video yet because it's still being sent by You Send It. So carry on. The talks got suspended today, didn't they? What was that all about? And are they back in action now?
They've only just resumed. That was basically because rich countries want to see a new text that includes a lot of ideas that they've invented and they want to own, whereas poorer countries, such as African countries and countries in small island states, are very much interested in the existing text, which actually protects their rights at the moment and will continue to do so from the end of this conference.
So how much time did we waste today with the suspension?
Well,